everyone, welcome back to another video, where today it's part 2 of my discussion of 14th Doctor stuff with Geek Rambles. But before we get into it, if you could do me a teeny tiny little favour and click that subscribe button, I'd be ever so grateful. We're about 200 subscribers away from 13,000, so if you could help us get there, that'd be ever so much appreciated. Also, go follow me on Twitter as I post my regular Doctor Who opinions over there. But with that said, enjoy the video. So now that we've spoken a bit about, the sort of companions that, you would want, no more 21st century Earth Girl from London thing, which I kind of do agree with. Is there any sort of casting ideas you have? Because I have a couple. The one that I would say that I'm really passionate about, actually, is Ruth Madley, who was in Years and Years, who played one of the sisters in Years and Years. And that's what I basically know her from. And if you look on the announcement of Ncuti Gatwa, I love saying that name, by the way.
It's great, isn't it?
It is great. It's really fun to say. She put a little wink and a heart face on the quote tweet. And again, might be me reading into it, probably is, but I wouldn't be surprised if she had some form of involvement in the next era. She's a known RTD collaborator. And significantly for me, she's a disabled actress. She's in a wheelchair as well.
Yes.
So that'd be lovely for me. And she actually does play a companion for Big Finish. And I know people will say, if she's done something for Big Finish, does that kind of put her out the running? But I mean, look at David Tennant. Look at anyone who's been cast in different roles. Yeah. I don't think. Tinia Miller's been doing Big Finish, and she was also the General in Series 9. I honestly think it doesn't matter particularly.
I know that there's a lot of people that have been saying, I would love it if Tania Miller was the new companion, but I think she is way too big. She is way too big to be a companion. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to Ncuti Gatwa. I just think she would be way better cast as the Doctor.
I agree. And I think it would be, it'd be kind of weird because she's so dominant in the scenes that I've seen her in Years and Years especially. I almost feel like she would sort of steal the spotlight away a little bit. So yeah, I agree. I love Tania, maybe the 15th Doctor. Maybe that's what we'd be looking at.
Maybe that would be nice.
Ruth Madley, though, I think she's already got a vested interest in the franchise. She's worked with RTD before. Great points representation wise. It'd be lovely for me to see a companion in a wheelchair at last. A big character, because we mostly are villains. We tend to be. If you look at Davros and John Lee, are the two major ones. Yeah, so it would be nice to have a Doctor Who character who's a main character who's in a wheel. That would be lovely for me.
Yeah, I would love to see that for you as well, to be honest.
Yeah, I would just love that. Other than that, Lydia West is one of the obvious ones, but I see her much more as a companion than I do as the Doctor, personally. She just has more. I watched It's a Sin, binged it the other day, as I mentioned before, and she gave me very Jenna Coleman, Clara Oswald vibes, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because she's kind of the matriarch of the house that they're all living in It's a Sin. She's kind of the adult of the scenario in It's a Sin. I very much got sort of Clara Oswald with 12, that sort of strong, fierce companion vibe from her. So I could totally see her filling in that role. My only thing is she too speculated about at this point? Kind of like the Chris Marshall rule of you speculate about them so much that you just never want.
Who was part of that train?
Were you a Chris Marshall person?
I was so on that bandwagon, and the only reason I didn't want it is because he was ginger. Literally the only reason. But I thought he would be fantastic. I wanted him since, and I know he was only speculated since Capaldi. I'm not saying I'm elitist in this or anything, but I actually wanted him. I think after Smith, it might have been after Capaldi, but I think after Smith I actually liked him because I used to be. I'm rambling again. We'll cut this bit.
No, I don't think I will.
I was a massive fan of My Family growing up, and I loved him in his portrayal. And it's funnily enough, I love the parents in there as well. I think Zoe Wanamaker and Robert Lindsay would make great villains in Doctor Who too. I would love to see Zoe Wanamaker as the Master. That would be Mistress. That would be incredible. I think she would pull that off so well. But yeah, Chris Marshall was someone that I really, really wanted. But then again, I'll go back to what I said earlier, that what I think I want, I absolutely do not want.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't get about Lydia West, if I'm being completely honest, is I didn't understand why people wanted her as a Doctor.
I don't get it either. Yeah, no,
I did not see her. As the Doctor.
I was not on that train at all. Don't get me wrong, excellent actress. In It's a Sin, she was brilliant. But just because you're a great actress doesn't mean you're a great Doctor. Those two things aren't necessarily the same. There are some phenomenal actors who I could say are brilliant, but not the Doctor. For example, looking at the Marvel lot, I love Chris Hemsworth as Thor. Do I think he'd be a good Doctor? No. Like, you have to have a certain vibe.
Yeah, I mean, going back to Marvel, people were even wanting Tom Holland. And I adore his Spider-Man, and I think he's wonderful.
But
Doctor,
no.
Absolutely not.
And I think Shooty is a great example of someone who fits the vibe. Getting into some of the more fun stuff, because I really want to talk about this stuff. If we start with TARDIS interiors, because this is like my favourite thing to talk about Doctor Who-wise, I could talk about the TARDIS indefinitely, because I love talking about that little thing. I think we have differing views on this. So start with you. What would you like to see from the 14th Doctor, Shooty Gatwa? Saying it again, because just making it real in my head. It's TARDIS.
I know. I love how you keep sort of like, what's the word? But
reiterating it.
Yeah, saying it with such, I don't know, you like drag it out in the
Excitement,
most amazing way. I said that I wanted the grungy 10th and 9th Doctor TARDIS. I've changed my mind completely.
I changed my mind.
Not that I agree with what you're going to say, because I already know what you're going to say, but I would love David Bradley's TARDIS or Ruth's TARDIS.
Do you know what? They're up there for me in terms of like a more classic design. In fact, do you know what? That was the first thing I pictured Shooty in. Was like,
oh really? Wait, what? That just the
that
things?
Vibe, like the sort of classic smaller console with the sort of uppity downity bit in the middle, the rotor that's not up to the ceiling, but like one of the moving ones. That's what I pictured him in pretty much immediately when I saw him. I was like, yeah, I could see you in almost like a Hartnell or like a Reese-esque console room. And yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, actually. Like, it's my only thing with that is it that exciting from a new era perspective? Is it like, because what the new era tends to do with like TARDISes, and I know that some people are more, they kind of want the designs to feel more iterative in the sense of like, because you know how you go from like the classic show where they all look relatively similar, you know, with a few changes, mainly the big one being the 80s with all the buttons. You get to like the movie and the revival, and it's just anything goes. You get the movie one, which is wood. You get the 2005 one, which is like coral. So I do understand the return to that. There is something exciting about a really wacky new TARDIS as well.
That's a good point. And the reason that I actually said about the grungy side is because I like the TARDIS when she is portrayed as she, like a character. Because she's alive, bear with me on this, because she's alive, I like to sort of see like the bits where you just really random parts of her are just sort of dotted around the TARDIS. If you get a picture up, it will probably make a bit more sense.
I think I get what you're saying.
Like stalks and like branches coming out of the TARDIS.
Yeah, it feels like a living thing. Yeah,
yeah, it's very organic.
Yeah,
and I love that. And if we could mix that in with classic TARDIS,
kind of a
really
bit
happy.
like maybe like John Hurt's then.
Unless, yeah.
The thing is, I get the desire for an organic one, but I also not really into the organic aesthetic. I get it from a conceptual level. Like you said, the TARDIS is a living creature, as we know. The Doctor treats it as such. But for me, I think the nicest looking TARDISes always tend to be the ones that lean more into the machine type elements. So either you've got, as you said before, the 60s ones with Hartnell and Ruth, or you've got the Capaldi one, which I love. I think it looks beautiful.
Oh, aesthetically, it is
or
beautiful.
Even beyond that, my absolute favourite, Paul McGann's The TV Movie. That's my peak.
Yeah, I always forget that he had a different TARDIS, always.
But it's my peak favourite. Like, I love the Jules Verne time machine vibe. I love the more Victorian, grandiose, big scale. I just love it. I think the lived-in aspect as well, I really like. Although, having said that, one thing I will say about Eccleston Tennant that I really like, the 2005, I kind of like that it looks like it's seen better days. I kind of like it when the TARDIS looks a bit worse for wear. Not completely, like not falling apart. I think there is like something really cool about like the aesthetic of a slightly broken TARDIS.
Tom Baker's is actually a good shout as well. I feel like I forget about his quite a lot. And I like the rustic, almost steampunky vibe he's got in his.
Yeah,
I think you could describe it that way anyway.
The wood one, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. My only issue with Tom's was always that the console was a bit weak because it didn't really have any cool buttons on.
Yeah.
The one thing I'm just not really big on the whole like cave vibe. I think it's been a bit overdone now. We've had it with both Eccleston, Tennant, and Jodie's.
I do not want to see another TARDIS like Jodie's.
No.
I'm not a massive
I think even
fan.
fans of this era aren't big fans of Jodie's TARDIS.
But I don't know what it is. It just doesn't feel.
I think my big thing is it doesn't feel like it's lived in at all.
No.
It doesn't feel like anyone lives or occupies that space. Like, I always used to wonder, especially after Series 11, where do all the companions, like, sit? Because there's 3 of them as well. So it's like, and there weren't any doors on the Series 11 version. Obviously, in Series 12, they added a corridor and a walkway and stuff. So it's like, do they just sleep on the floor? Like, what happens?
Well, there was a mattress on the floor in a particular episode.
Well, yeah, there was. Yeah, well, that's a whole other topic.
That is a whole other video.
That is a whole other video. With regards to, like, Jodie's TARDIS, it just feels so empty and sort of, I don't know, like, there's no buttons on the console either, like, no distinguishable ones other than the big lever that she pulls down. Like, that's the only one. Lever. I like the big lever. The big lever looks satisfying to push, but there's no other levers that I can identify on that console. You look at the Capaldi one, and they're all very like distinct, and you can tell what each of them does. Whereas with Jodie's, it's like it all just sort of looks the same.
The thing that I love about 9 and 10's TARDIS is that they run about, and you can tell that he just knows it. He is literally one with the TARDIS, you know, he'll run, he'll know this one, and he's, you know, pumping something and flipping this switch, and then even getting Rose and just saying that button. And even when she's like, oh, that one, he's like, he just killed it. You know, I just love that. Yeah. He knows the TARDIS so well that it's just complete muscle memory.
I also, the thing I do like about it is that obviously I don't think it's a great like permanent TARDIS aesthetic, but I do like that it's kind of, I always got the vibe that he built it himself partially. Or like repaired it himself partially, at least. Obviously, I know that doesn't really make sense anymore because the whole point is the TARDIS rebuilds itself. I think in one of the videos they say like the design philosophy was, you know, I think he like found a bicycle pump somewhere. It's like, yeah, put that on. We'll use that as one of the levers. You know, and I do quite like that. On the same note, I do like Matt Smith's first one, but the only thing I would say about that is it only really works with 11. It works with his personality because it's like kind of mad and all over the place, and that's how he was. Yeah. And it's very athletic as well, which again was how he was. It was very dash about everywhere at 100 million miles an hour. That was him. I can't see it with any other Doctor. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a clip of very short clip of Peter Capaldi going through all different console rooms for the Doctor Who experience. It's still, I'll have to show you it later.
Yeah.
But there's a brief clip of him in the Matt Smith TARDIS, and it just looks kind of wrong to me. Like, it almost feels like there's a disturbance in the plot. Like, this doesn't look right. This is wrong.
I'm going to materialize the TARDIS inside the TARDIS.
I think it's difficult to balance a TARDIS that fits the Doctor's personality, but also just looks really good as a TARDIS, especially because everyone's definition of what a nice TARDIS looks like is different. Kind of like the show in a way, but yeah, I think something more mechanical would be what I was leaning towards this time. A lot of people are probably going to disagree with me there. I just think, or, you know, as I said, something like would be different, and it would be, because we haven't had that since McGann's, so it would be different. So we'll have to wait and see, I suppose. But shout out to Debs Iona, Shane Smith, Ree Keffin, Seb Lowndes, Jay Monroe, Hash Shandycoot, Patrick Mewson, Simon Ashley, Steve Surfaro, Andrew Townsend, Alex Robbins, Michael Dykes, Paul Bryden, Sam Yates, Michael Rhodes, Jerry the Meerkat, Heretic, Bibliotecária Nerd, Cameron Jefferson, John M, Metahuvian, Ben Freeman. If you want to become a member, feel free to do so. It really helps out. You get exclusive posts, shout outs in every video, and even your own badge and custom emojis to use.